Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 drama. Christian Horner responding to the cheating claims of Zach Brown of McLaren, but Toto Wolff saying that Horner is effectively playing victim here, and actually it's the other teams that are the victims in this situation. But meanwhile, it seems like they've come to an arrangement with the FIA as to what the punishment will be, maybe a less severe one than we looked at yesterday. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always. Also, we saw yesterday, of course, the passing of Dietrich Mateschitz, huge figure, not just founder of Red Bull, but also what he's done in terms of bringing Red Bull into Formula 1 and the huge impact that's had on the sport over the last decade and a half, really. So, yes, obviously massively sad news yesterday and very interesting timing, really, because I think we might have an announcement with regard to what the penalty is going to be, but it's going to be delayed in respect for Dietrich, right? So, yeah, huge impact, of course. There was a lot of reaction from around the Formula 1 community yesterday to his passing, and many drivers, even the Verstappens and the Vettels of the world, who Dietrich was hugely influential in bringing them through the program and into the Red Bull team because, you know, he loved his plate and his cars and all this. Like, yeah, they miss him very sorely indeed. So, difficult time for the Formula 1 world, especially Red Bull. But, I mean, yeah, there's plenty of drama going on as well. Firstly, Logan Sargent, he's going to drive for Williams next year. Confirmed by Jos Capito yesterday that Sargent will be the man for them. He's their current F2 driver if he gets enough points. He should get enough points in Abu Dhabi, but, you know, reliability in Formula 2 isn't always tip-top. If the car goes haywire and he doesn't get the points, or he doesn't place well enough and the other drivers around him have cracking races, then he might not get the super license points. So, a little bit strange, really, because if he DNFs in Abu Dhabi, he might not get the seat, but if he finishes the race in a good position, he will get the seat, and it's like, you know, is that really fair? You know, it seems like he probably deserves the seat regardless, but that's the rules, so that's how it'll be. If he doesn't get the seat, probably Mick Schumacher, but probably Logan Sargent's the man. The first, I believe, US, American driver on the grids since, I think, Rossi in 2015, so it's been a long time, and good for the US audience. Of course, they're there right now in America as well, in the Circuit of the Americas in Texas. Quick recap of qualifying as well. There was some drama about this because some people said Verstappen was over the white line. I think he might just be inside. It's really tough to say. This was his Q1 lap, actually, and some said, okay, Q3, even there were some question marks about it. I must say, the inconsistency is quite remarkable because Zhou's lap was called offside, right? It was called, he was outside the lines, so his lap in Q2 got deleted and didn't make it into Q3, even though he almost did, but the lap got deleted. But yet, Verstappen only did one lap in Q1, and it was deemed okay, so he just sat in the garage and waited for Q2, didn't have to use another set of tyres. But, you know, people looked at this lap and thought, you know, is this out? And it doesn't seem like they do this, like, by computers. Maybe it's done automatically, but it seems like the teams or the FIA look at it and, like, decide by eye whether it's out or whether it's in. So, you know, this lap, you could argue, should have been disallowed or whatever, and if they did a Perez, what they did back in Austria, because in Austria for Perez, like, his lap in Q2 was outside of the lines, but they let him into Q3 anyway. They didn't spot it at the time, and then afterwards they realised, actually, hang on, that shouldn't have been allowed, and therefore they docked him, and he had to start further down. I don't think they would have done that here, just because, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if it was called to be out, then Verstappen would have just gone out and done another lap and it'd have got through anyway. But, yeah, I don't know, because there was plenty of time left in Q1 at this point, but they've just got to be better and quicker and more consistent on these rulings, because there's always drama about this every weekend at this point. And this was the qualifying gaps in the end. Sainz took pole, Leclerc was right behind, but he's going to start 12th due to his 10th place, as it now is grid penalty. Verstappen P2, Perez was P4, but he'll go back a fair few places as well because of his penalty. And then Hamilton was relatively close, so he did a great lap on his first try, but then he reckons the car was a bit of a handful, couldn't really put it all together on the second time round, but still it will be Mercedes 3rd and 4th on the grid with the penalties applied. So Sainz pole, impressive stuff. The Ferraris 1-2 technically, good performance from them in qualifying. Verstappen was right behind. Then yes, Hamilton, Russell 3rd and 4th on the grid. So pretty exciting stuff. Stroll P5, to me the standout performance of qualifying, stuck it in P7 in an Aston Martin around this circuit. That's certainly good going. He'll start 5th on the grid around Norris, Bottas, even Albon's up here in 8th. So yeah, Perez, Leclerc, they push down. Alonso as well, P14. One other key thing of note was Ocon, who had a really tough time despite having the new upgrades for Alpine. So that's the grid for today's race. Let's talk about the drama then. So, I mean, look, first of all, I feel bad really for the poor, like, you know, Verstappen and Perez here, because they were on stage getting interviewed, and the crowd, I mean, the American crowds are pretty ruthless, to be fair. They were just chanting, like, you know, cheaters, all this type of stuff. It's not their fault, right? Like, look, if the team did overspend and they did cheat, it's not the driver's fault at the end of the day, but still, the crowd was letting their thoughts be known. And I mean, yeah, fantastic job from whoever was organising the team principals discussions, because they put Christian Horner and Zak Brown right next to each other after Zak Brown did that kind of letter we saw a few days ago where he effectively accused Red Bull of cheating and said they should be punished severely. Now, Christian Horner, as you can tell by his face, was not a happy man about this, and it got very heated indeed. And one of the comments was as following: "In an age where mental health is prevalent, we are seeing significant issues within our workforce. We are getting kids that are employees' children being bullied in playgrounds because of fictitious allegations from other teams." So quite the statement really here from Horner. Like, look, that's not right. We don't want kids getting bullied in playgrounds and getting accused of being cheaters because their parents work for Red Bull or whatever, right? We don't want that type of stuff to be happening. But, still, of course, Horner's going to call these fictitious allegations because the numbers aren't officially confirmed. But at the same time, like, the FIA have said, like, they're in the minor overspend breach. So it's not like Zak Brown's wrong to say that they were over the budget. Whether he's wrong to say exactly, to go to the extent that he did, that's another question. But even as Horner went on to say, it's tremendously disappointing for a fellow competitor to be accusing you of cheating, saying it's shocking that they accuse them of, fraudulent activity and cheating, especially, like, I'm sure in light of Dietrich Mateschitz passing away. Like, it's not been a great time for Red Bull the last few days, right? It's kind of brought a black cloud over Red Bull to some extent around this whole time period. So it's understandable why Horner is not a happy man at all about what it's kind of meant for the Red Bull reputation and branding over the last few days. But, you could argue it's their fault, right? Don't overspend, and then you don't have these issues. The other 9 teams didn't have any issues seemingly hitting the number. He went on to say, "The following we have been on trial because of public accusations since Singapore, the rhetoric of cheats, the rhetoric that we've had this enormous benefit." He reckons there's been no benefit at all for their competitive advantage. Maybe they spent more on spare parts or something. I think Horner also said they changed the rules around the spare parts earlier in the year, but seemingly none of the other teams have problems with that, so I'm not really sure what it was for Red Bull there. But regardless, they went over the number. Horner reckons that they're talking about really a couple of thousand or a couple of $100,000 in terms of what could be towards development or whatever. It's tough to say, but look, at the end of the day, the teams want a severe punishment because this is financial fair play. It's part of the regulations, part of the technical, financial regulations, all kind of in the same boat to some degree. The teams want to see severe punishments, and of course Horner did this whole, mental health topic, which is understandable, but Toto Wolff is looking at this and saying, well, he's just trying to pretend he's the victim here, whereas the reality is that Red Bull aren't the victims. It's the other teams that are the victims of Red Bull spending too much. Now, what he did say was that whatever deal they come up with the FIA, it will be above board. It's not going to be private. It's going to be public. And we saw shortly after this, the entire team go in to speak to Mohammed Ben Sulayem and the FIA to come to an arrangement. We'll see what that might be here in a second. Firstly, Toto Wolff's reaction to this, because I thought this was kind of funny, really. And to be honest, quite understandable. He says he almost had to shed a tear when he heard Christian Horner's comment. It's a little bit like reverse psychology. Who is the victim here? And I believe the victims are the 9 teams. So what he's saying is that Horner's effectively playing this up and saying, the kids of our employees were getting bullied for being cheaters and stuff. And he's like, well, look, it's not my fault that your kids are getting bullied. Obviously he's not really saying that outright, but you know what he means. He's like, well, look, it's your fault if you didn't overspend and you didn't put yourself in this category of breaking the regulations, which some people could understandably call cheating. Then, who's actually the architect of this problem? It's not Mercedes, it's not McLaren, it's Red Bull for overspending, right? These were his full comments. He said, the fact are that 9 out of 10 teams were under the cost cap. One team is now arguing that they slipped over it with supposed non-performance topics, but these apply to all of us. We also thought about how many sandwiches we give people and how we deal with various other cost pools. Whatever they're over, $1 million to $5 million, I don't know, is a cash value advantage that you can put into development. This is the thing, right? That, they talk about spare parts and, cost for employees having leave. And it's like, well, the other teams also have to consider those factors. So whatever they overspent is technically a number they could have put towards development. And Hamilton and Wolff have also said that, they brought way more upgrades last year, Red Bull, than Mercedes were able to because of the cost cap figure. So, that's basically what he's saying here. And he's like, look, we also had to consider our catering. We also had to figure out how many sandwiches we could give people. So just hilarious comments between these two, as you come to expect from Horner versus Wolff. It's been a slow start to the season between the two of them, but now they're really getting back into the thick of things. It's a bit like reverse psychology. He says, who is the victim? We are the victims, and the other 8 teams, not Red Bull in this particular instance. And he also went on to say that he doesn't expect the 2021 world title to be changed or anything. That's not realistic. He reckons really it's because of the size of the violation. He does say that 1 or 2 million can decide the championship, which other drivers have also also implied, but also what he's kind of saying is, well, it's a minor violation according to the rules. Up to $7 million is a minor violation. So he expects that under the minor kind of limit breach, he's not expecting any changes. But I think they would like to see, probably going forwards, that maybe anything over 1% is a major breach, because, you know, maybe 1% is minor, anything over that is major, and therefore that's when the questions could come through in future seasons. But of course, we hope that this is it for the cost cap drama going forwards, because if this happens every year and the title is brought into question, it's just a nightmare for Formula One. But the teams are always going to push the envelope, because every extra 500 grand is potentially a big deal. He also went on to say this, right, that Mercedes have had their controversies in Brazil, right, the 0.02mm rear wing thing they got disqualified for. I believe the financial regulations are an important pillar alongside the technical and sporting regulations. The reason for the cost cap was that all the teams will be able to fight with the same spendings. When one team is over it now, with whatever excuses, it is actually against the spirit. So quite the statement between all of them. And apparently they've come to a deal. We saw yesterday that the rumor had it that, rumors were circulating from Amos that the FIA had proposed a 25% reduction in testing time. That is wind tunnel and simulator testing time, I believe, which would be a very significant number indeed. Red Bull were like, hang on a second, this is ridiculous. That's like way too over the top. Let's chat about this to Mohammed bin Sulayem, and I'm sure that's what they are presently doing. And apparently they've come to an agreement. So whether that 25% reduction is now a 15, 10%, 1% reduction, I don't know. But that's probably what they've done, because like the FIA wanted Red Bull to say, look, admit you're in the wrong, admit you went over the cap, and we'll give you this punishment. If you refuse to admit and you refuse to accept our terms, then we're going to give you a worse punishment. But it's kind of weird to me that there's this whole negotiation element. Like the FIA say this is the punishment, and then Red Bull say no, we disagree, we think this should be the punishment, and then the FIA say, yeah, fair enough, let's do that instead. Should there really be this negotiation? Like surely the department comes up with the punishment, and then that's the punishment. Maybe you can appeal or whatever, and teams can discuss it. But I think this whole negotiation thing with the teams is like, I don't really know why they do this, because the team is going to fight their point. So yes, apparently they've decided what it's going to be. It's probably, in my opinion, not going to be as extreme as the 25% reduction that Red Bull were clearly not happy with that we talked about yesterday, which would be a major difference going into the new season. But it's not going to be announced for a few days. Apparently it was going to be communicated soon, but due to the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, they're not going to do that quite yet. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, take care, and I'll see you next time.